Lesson 10 Superlative Adjectives. Superlative Adjectives. In the previous lesson, we learned comparative adjectives. We studied comparative adjectives. We said comparative adjectives are used to compare two nouns, or two objects. For example, tiger is more or tiger is stronger than cat. Tiger is stronger than cat. You are comparing tiger to cat. Now we are going to study superlative adjectives. What are superlative adjectives? Superlative adjectives are used to describe an object which is at the upper or lower limit of a quality. Which is at the upper or lower limit of a quality. For example, the tallest, the smallest, the fastest, the highest. They are used in sentences where a subject is compared to a group of objects. A subject is compared to a group of objects. For example, you have a class of 20 students. You have a class of 20 students. This class, for example, contains 20 students. One of the students is the best student in the class. He or she, for example, he is the best student in the class. You compare he to a group of objects, to a group of students. The structure of superlative adjectives in sentence. Noun, the subject, verb, verb to be, plus the. In comparative adjectives, we said we always use than. We always use than to compare two objects. But here in superlative adjectives, we use the before the superlative adjective. We use the before the superlative adjectives plus the object of the sentence, the second noun. For example, my house is the largest one in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood contains, for example, more than 30 houses. Contains more than 30 houses. Our neighborhood is a group of houses. It is a group of houses which creates our neighborhood. Our house, which is a single house in our neighborhood, is the largest one in our neighborhood. You compare your house to a group of houses. Compare your house to a group of houses. My house is the subject. My house is the subject. It is the verb to be. We said we always use the before superlative adjectives. Before superlative adjectives. Largest is the superlative adjective, and this is the complement. Another example, Nile is the longest river in the world. Nile is the longest river in the world. In the world, there are more than 100 rivers. There are more than 100 rivers, but Nile River, which is in Egypt, is the longest river in the world. You compare Nile to a group of river in the world. Nile is the longest river in the world. Nile is the subject, is the verb to be, we always use the before superlative adjectives, longest, superlative adjective, complement. Forming superlative adjectives and reviewing comparative adjectives. For one-syllable adjectives, in the previous lesson, we said when we have one-syllable adjectives, In comparative form, we just add er to it. We just add er to it. For the comparative and superlative forms of one-syllable adjective, by adding er for the comparative form, it means for the comparative form, we just add er. And est for the superlative form. It means when we have one syllable adjective, to make it to a superlative form, we just add est to it. We add est to it. For example, one syllable adjectives: tall, old, long. These are one syllable adjectives. For the comparative form, we just add er. And for superlative form, we add est. Tall, taller, tallest. Tall, taller, tallest. Old, old. For the comparative form, we just add er. Why? Because it is one syllable adjective. And for the superlative form, we add est. Old, older, oldest. Old, older, oldest. Long, long, another one syllable adjective. For the comparative, we add er. Longer. For the superlative, we add est. Longest. Examples: Mary is taller than Max. Mary is taller than Max. This is what? This is comparative adjective. We have two nouns, two objects, Mary and Max. Mary and Max. Mary is the first object. Here it functions like a subject. Mary is the subject. It is verb to be. Taller. What's taller? Taller has er. Therefore, it is comparative adjective. Mary is taller than Max. Mary is taller than Max. We said we always use than in comparative adjectives for comparing two objects. Max is older than John. Max is older than John. Here is also we have comparative adjective. We have two objects. We have than. My hair is longer than yours. My hair and yours. These are the two objects. Longer is a comparative adjective. How do you know? Because it has er. It has er. And we have than in the sentence. Superlative examples. Mary is the tallest of all the students. Mary is the tallest of all the students. Here, Mary is compared with a group of students. With a group of the students. Mary is the tallest of all the students. Therefore, it is superlative adjectives. Tallest is superlative adjectives. How do you know? It has est, and we have the before the superlative adjectives. For the formation superlative adjectives, we said we have subject, verb to be, the. We always have the before the superlative adjectives. Superlative adjective, complement, and second object. Of the three students, you have here there are three students. A group of three students. Max is the oldest. Max is the oldest. Max is the oldest. Max is the oldest. It means Max is the oldest in the group. You are comparing Max with a group of three students. Therefore, it is superlative. The is always used before superlative adjectives. Max's story is the longest story I have ever heard. I have ever heard. It means you heard more than one story. You have heard more than one story. Max's story is the longest. Is the longest. You compare Max's story to the stories that you have ever heard. You have heard more than one story. But Max's story is the longest, Therefore, it is superlative adjective. Another type, this is another type, if one syllable adjective ends with an E. If one syllable adjective ends with E. Just add R for the comparative form and add st for the superlative form. It means when you have a one syllable adjective that ends with E, that ends with vowel E. For the superlative form, you just add R, and for the comparative form, you just add R, and for the superlative form, you just add st. For example, we have two one-syllable adjectives that ends with E, large and wise. For the comparative form, as we said, we just add R. We have the E, we just add R, large, larger. And for the superlative form, we add st. We have the E, we add st, large, larger, largest. Wise, we have the E, it ends with E. For the comparative form, we just add R. We have the E already. Wise, wiser, wise, wiser. And for the superlative form, we just add st, wise, wiser, wisest. For example, Mary's car is larger than Max's car. Mary's car is larger than Max's car. Here, Mary's car is compared to Max's car. We have two objects. Therefore, it is comparative adjective. Larger is comparative. It has ER. And the sentence contains than. My house is the largest of all the houses on the block. My house is the largest of all the houses on the block. Mary's house is compared with a group of houses, not one with one house. If it is compared with one house, it will become a comparative form, but it is compared with a group of houses. Therefore, it is superlative form. Mary's house is the largest. We have superlative form of an adjective. Max is wiser than his brother. Max and his brother. We have two nouns, two objects. They are compared by a comparative adjective, wiser, and we have than in the sentence. We can recognize it easily that it is a comparative form. Max is the wisest person I know. You know more than one person. You know more than Max. You might know hundreds of persons or hundreds of people, but Max is the wisest. It is superlative adjective. Another form. If the one-syllable adjective ends with a single consonant, with a vowel before it. It means a vowel and a consonant. A vowel and a consonant. Do you remember the vowels? What are the vowels? The vowels are A, O, U, E, I. A, O, U, E, I. If one-syllable adjectives ends with a single consonant with a vowel before it, ends with a single consonant and a vowel before it, we have to double the consonant, double the consonant and add er for the superlative form, as we have talked about in the previous lesson, and double the consonant, add est for the superlative form. It means whenever we have an adjective, one-syllable adjective that ends with a consonant and a vowel before it, For the comparative form, we double the consonant and add er to it. And for the superlative form, we double the consonant and add est to it. For example, big, bigger, biggest. Double the consonant, add er for comparative form. Double the consonant, add est for superlative form. Thin, thin, thinner, thinnest. Double the consonant, add er for the comparative. Double the consonant, add est for the superlative. Fat, one consonant, one vowel. Double the consonant, add er for comparative. Fatter. Double the consonant, add est for the superlative. Fattest. My dog is bigger than your dog. My dog and your dog. Two objects are compared by a comparative adjective bigger. Bigger is a comparative form. My dog is the biggest of all the dogs in the neighborhood. All the dogs, a group of dogs. My dog is compared to a group of dogs. Therefore, it should be superlative adjectives because we said superlative adjectives are used to compare a subject to a group of objects. A subject to a group of objects. The biggest. Max is thinner than John. Max and John. We have two objects, two nouns. They are compared by the comparative adjective thinner. And than is in the sentence. Of all the students in the class. Of all the students of the class. A group of students. Max is the thinnest. Max is the thinnest. How do you know it is a superlative adjective? Because it is compared to a group of students. Max is compared to a group of students in the class. My mother is fatter than your mother. Two objects. My mother and your mother are compared by the comparative adjective fatter than is in the sentence. Mary is the fattest person I have ever seen. Mary is the fattest person I have ever seen. You have seen more than Mary. You have seen fat people more than Mary. But Mary is the fattest person you have ever seen. Therefore, it should be superlative. Mary is compared to a group of people. Another form, two-syllable adjectives. We said in the previous lesson for the comparative adjectives, if the adjective is more than one syllable, we said we are more or less to the adjectives. With most two-syllable adjectives, you form the comparative with more, as we talked about in the previous lesson, or less, and the superlative with most. Most. For the superlative adjectives, we add most to the adjectives. For example, two-syllable adjectives. Peaceful. Peaceful. For the comparative form, we add more. More peaceful. More peaceful. For the superlative form, we say most peaceful. Most peaceful. Pleasant. 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 More pleasant. Most pleasant. Careful. Careful. For the comparative form, we say more careful. More careful. For the superlative form, we say most careful. Most careful. Thoughtful. Thoughtful. For the comparative form, we add more. More thoughtful. For the superlative form, we add most. Most thoughtful. Most thoughtful. Examples. This morning is more peaceful than yesterday morning. This morning and yesterday morning are compared by the adjective peaceful, more peaceful, more than one syllable. It is two syllable, peaceful, peaceful, more peaceful than yesterday. Max's house in the mountains, Max's house in the mountains is the most peaceful in the world. Is the most peaceful in the world. Max's house is compared to a group of houses. It is compared to a group of houses. Therefore, here superlative adjectives should be used. We said we always have the before superlative adjectives. Most is used for two-syllable adjectives. In the superlative form, the most peaceful. Max is more careful than Mike. Max and Mike are compared by the comparative form more careful. More careful. And we have then, it is the easiest signal to distinguish comparative form. Of all the taxi drivers, it means there are a group of taxi drivers. Jack is the most careful. Jack is the most careful. Jack is the most careful. Therefore, it is superlative adjectives. How do you know? We know it is superlative form because Jack is compared to a group of driver. Jack is a driver who is compared to a group of driver. Another form. If the adjective ends with Y. Do you remember what did we say in the previous lesson when an adjective ends with Y? We said we change the Y to I, then we add ER to the adjective. We said for the comparative adjectives, when an adjective ends with Y, we change the Y to I, then we add ER to it. If the adjective ends with Y preceded by a consonant, change the Y to I and add ER for the comparative form. For the superlative form, change the Y to I. It means for the superlative form, we also change the Y to I and add EST. It means whenever you have a comparative adjective, whenever you have an adjective that ends with Y for the comparative form, you change the Y to I and then you add ER to the adjectives. But for the superlative form, you change the Y to I, then you add est. For example, happy is a one-syllable adjective that ends with Y. For the comparative form, we change the Y to I, and add er. Also, for the superlative form, we change the Y to I, but we add est, happy, happier, happiest, happy, happier, happiest. Angry is another adjective that ends with Y. For the comparative, we change the Y to I and add er. For the superlative, we change the Y to I and add est. Angry, angrier, angriest. Busy. Change ends with Y. Change Y to I, add er. Change Y to I, add er. Change Y to I, add est. Busy, busier, busiest. Busy, busier, busiest. For example, John is happier today than he was yesterday. John is happier today than he was yesterday. It means today's John is compared with yesterday's John. It is the same person, but the difference is the time, today and yesterday. Today he was on a bad mood, and yesterday he was on a bad mood, today he is on a good mood. John is happier today than he was yesterday. It is a comparative. John is compared to himself in 2 different days. John is the happiest boy in the world. Boy in the world. In the world there are more than John. There are billions of boys. But John is the happiest boy. Superlative form. Max is angrier than Mary. Max and Mary are compared by the comparative adjective angrier. Max is angrier than Mary. Of all of John's victims, a group of victims, Max is the angriest. It is superlative because it is compared to a group. Exceptions. Irregular adjectives. As we have talked about in the previous lesson, we had 3 irregular adjectives: good, bad, far. We studied only these 3 irregular adjectives. Good became better. In the previous lesson. Bad, worse. Far, further. Farther or further. Here we study 2 more irregular adjectives. Little, many. These are irregular. These don't have any rules to follow. For example, good is an irregular adjective. For the comparative form, we say better. Good, better. For the superlative form, we say best. Good, better, best. Bad, worse, worst. Bad, worse, worst. Far, further, furthest. Far, further, furthest. Little. For the comparative form, it becomes less. For the superlative form, it becomes least. Many. For the comparative form, it becomes more. For the superlative form, it becomes most. Italian food is better than American food. Italian food is compared to American food. Italian food is better than American food. Better is a comparative form of good. Than is always used for comparing two objects. My dog is the best dog in the world. The best dog in the world. It is compared to a group of dogs. The best. My mother's cooking is worse than yours. My mother's cooking is worse than yours. We have my mother's cooking and your cooking. They are compared by the adjective, by the comparative adjective worse, which is a comparative form for bad. A comparative form for bad than yours. Of all the students in class, of all the students in the class, a group of the students, the class might contain 20 students. Max is the worst. Max is the worst. Max is the worst. Max is compared to the group of the students by a superlative adjective. Worst, the worst, which is the superlative form of bad. Superlative form of bad. Extra practice or quiz. Number one. I have 3 apples. I have 3 apples. This yellow apple, for example, this one is yellow. This yellow apple this one is compared to this 2. It means there should be what? There should be a superlative adjective because you have a group of 3 apples and you compare the yellow one. The yellow one is we have the adjective smaller, the smallest. We have the adjective small. Small is 1 syllable adjective. We said for 1 syllable adjective. For comparative form, we just add er. And for superlative form, we just add est. Here we need a superlative adjective. Smaller is what? Is a comparative. Therefore, this is not correct. Most, smallest. We add most for 2 syllable adjectives. But small is 1 syllable. Therefore, we just add est. Smallest is the correct answer. I have 3 apples. This yellow apple is the smallest. This book is the blank. We have the. This the is also helps you to differentiate between comparative and superlative adjectives because we said in comparative adjective sentences we always have than. But for superlative adjectives sentences we always have the. In these sentences you can't find the. For example, here this book is the blank book I have ever read. Number 2, this book is the blank book I have ever read. You have read more than one book. You have read more than one book. You have read many books. You have read many books. You compare this book to a group of books. Therefore, you need a superlative form of adjective. Longer is what? Is a comparative. Most long is grammatically incorrect. Why? Because long is 1 syllable. You can't add most to long. Most long is not correct. When we have a 1 syllable adjective, for the superlative form we just add est. Longest is the correct answer. It is the correct answer. This book is the longest book I have ever read. Number 3. She is the blank girl in the class. The class contains More than one student. It might contain 25 students. Smart is an adjective. Smarter, superlative adjective. Smartest, smarter comparative adjective. Smartest, superlative adjective. She is the, we have the, after the, we use superlative adjectives. She is the smartest girl in the class. Mount Everest is the blank mountain in the world. In the world, there are more than one mountain. You compare Mount Everest to a group of mountains in the world. Therefore, we need a superlative form of adjective. We have the most high, higher, highest. High, we have adjective high. High is one syllable. We can't say most high. Higher is correct, but it is comparative. It is comparative. We need what? We need a superlative adjective. Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world. Number 5, the last one. That is the blank. That is the blank cake I have ever eaten. You have eaten more than one cake. You have eaten more than one cake. You compare that cake to a group of cake. To a group of cake. Most good, better, best. We have the adjective good. We said good is an irregular form. For the superlative form, good becomes best. For the comparative form, good becomes better. Good, better, best. We can't say most good. It is completely wrong. And here we have the. We don't have than here. We can't use comparative. Undoubtedly, we use superlative form of good. That cake is the best cake I have ever eaten. That is the best cake I have ever eaten.